Last night, the Brooklyn Nets battled hard, fought a 15-point lead all the way down to 2, but to no avail. They end up losing their fifth straight game in a row. What it all means is what we break down on today's show. Hello, everybody, and welcome back into another edition of the Brooklyn Boys Show. Make sure you drop down below this video, hit like and subscribe before we get started, as those are the best ways to support our channel's growth. Brooklyn Nets fans, hope you are doing well here on this beautiful Wednesday, February 25th of 2026. Last night, it was a 123-114 loss to a Cooper flagless Dallas Mavericks team. The fifth straight loss this team suffers. They are now comfortably in the bottom three of the NBA standings. But this was not your ordinary game. Both teams came into Brooklyn very, very late because of a blizzard the night before. In fact, they landed day of in Brooklyn and barely even had time for an afternoon shoot around. So a very, very weird game on multiple aspects. But they got to the arena safely. They played this game out. And honestly, it surprised me how Brooklyn played. This is a fully healthy Nets team. That is something we haven't been able to say most of the season. And this is probably peak potential for what you will be seeing the rest of the season. So if this is a ground zero for what is to move forward, I think that is a pretty fair assessment. You had a great game from MPJ and a couple guys of the supporting cast stepping up, but it still isn't going to lead to a win. And I think at this point in the Nets season, that is sort of the expectation of what it should be on a night in and night out basis. At least they're able to keep it a lot closer than has been the case 3-4 weeks ago when they were getting blown out by, in some cases, 50 or 60 plus on a nightly basis. So at least it's not at that point. Obviously not a great Dallas Mavericks team on the opposing end, but still not one that has nobody going for them. So I think the Nets have some key takeaways from that. We'll break all that down and so much more right here. Again, appreciate you all tuning in. Throw questions, comments down below, and we'll react to those. Pre-recorded video for you. Had to get this in, have something to do tonight, but wanted to make sure we get some sort of content out because the Nets play a back-to-back tomorrow and Friday, so not going to be an opportunity to get a live stream in there. We will do one over the weekend just as a quick programming note so you all know what to expect moving forward. But let's get into this and unpack this game a little bit more and figure out what there is to dissect from this. I think where we have to start is with Michael Porter Jr. Because before the All-Star break and the weeks before, he took a dip. And that's natural at an NBA scoring level. He wasn't going to continue putting up those 30-plus point performances he did put up in the previous weeks. He wasn't going to put in 28 a night. It still wasn't terrible. 22 points a night is nothing to be ashamed of, but it wasn't exactly the production you were seeing back in November, back in December. He did take a little bit of a dip in January, but I'm starting to wonder if he's maybe breaking out of that slump a little bit as he started to pick it back up, back to maybe not that original pace for the rest of the season, but somewhere closer to that. On the season, he's still averaging a very, very solid 24 and a half, 3 and 7 rebounds a night, which for a number one scorer in a terrible offense and is not bad. And it's going to be better when you cross compare to what he put up in Denver. Obviously, a much different situation. But I think you still are happy with what you got. And I think Sean Marks at this point is still content with not having dealt Porter Jr. at the deadline and looking to keep him on this team as a bona fide second option. Probably is going to be the outlook next year. Hopefully you're being able to bring in a guy like Cam Boozer, Darren Peterson, AJ DeBansta to be that number one scoring option. But then obviously you need some guys to complement him beside him. So I don't think that Sean Marks at this point in the season is mad about what he did with Michael Porter Jr. And I think tonight was sort of a concrete example of how he can be used in the future. Or last night, that is, I'll pull up the stat sheet so we can look at it alongside each other. 26 points, 9 of 16 from the field, 2 of 6 from 3 is not terrible. But then the assists are there and 0 rebounds is really an outlier because usually, he's a forward. He's listed as a forward and he certainly plays like someone who's not afraid to shoot the ball. But in any case, he is still one of the bigger guys on the Nets floor at any given time. Nick Claxton had a tremendous game last night, so maybe that's the exception. But when you draft five rookies and four of them are guards, you're going to have a lot of forwards collecting rebounds, has been the case for Michael Porter Jr. all season. So the 26 points are certainly something to look at. And even then, it really didn't catch your eye. I think the number one guy that stood out in this game, despite what the stat sheet will tell you, is Noah Clowney. 22 points. Um, he had an amazing night all around, and he was hitting from three. He went 4 of 5 from 3-point range, and I think that is really what has been the deciding factor to his success all season. But I think we have to take this Noah Clowney situation this season and look at it in sort of a broader scope because we know what he's capable of. We've seen it in the past. Can it translate to a season long continual growth and see some actual concrete examples of him growing as a player to be trusted in the future? And I think the answer has been yes this season. I think he has shown that a little bit. They flashed up a stat on the scoreboard that was Noah Clowney's eighth 20 plus point performance this season alone. And remember, there are still over 20 games to go. That is after only having four previously in his entire career. So 820 plus points this season compared to 4 previously in the rest of his career. Obviously, the opportunities have been at a much, much higher clip this season with the Nets as the third worst team in the league right now. And that has opened up the door and the pathway for him to get more on the shooting side of the ball. But I think it is something to build off of because next year, this team probably competes in the East. Roster spots are going to be at a premium, unlike what they were this year. Jordy Fernandez was more than happy to give Noah Clowney another crack at it, and I think he has taken most of that opportunity and brought that with him. So obviously, you still want to see his development continue to grow. There is 100% still room for improvement. But look, 4 of 5 from three. How can I complain about a performance like that? By far the best Nets 3-point shooter last night and was the only guy to have 4 or more threes. So hopefully he's starting to mold into a long-term piece for this franchise. Hopefully this is one of many performances that he's able to stack together and build into a pretty good resume this season. And then you really open up things in the offseason. Maybe he's able to add another tool to his game. Come summertime, he's able to become a multi-level scorer and is able to use that bigger frame because he's not fit to play center in this league. And frankly, you could argue he's on the smaller side for forwards as well. So he is really in an individualized case. And I think he needs to figure out how to use that well. But tonight was a great example of what you want to see out of Noah Clowney. Beautiful from 3-point range. All around great. Was getting to the cup. Got 10 tries at the free throw stripe. The Nets weren't perfect from the charity stripe, only 70% on the game, which you hate to see, but you love to see them getting to the line 27 times. What that means is aggressive takes and getting inside the paint. So hopefully you're able to clean that up. 6 of 10 for the free throw line isn't perfect, but you still like the idea of where it's coming from. And the Carolina crew as a whole, that name I've championed between Clowney and Claxton also had a great night. So the Carolina crew really cashed in the two of them last night as well. Claxton, another massive performance. I was telling you guys in the offseason, give Nick Claxton another year. He will return to that 2022-23 form where he was a defensive player of the year candidate, where he's blocking the heck out of shots, where he's rebounding everything. And Nick Claxton has really, really, really turned a corner from last year's injury-plagued season. He puts in 16 points, but 9 assists is really what jumps off the chart. That is a 6'11 center right there, adapting to the modern game. 9 assists for Nick Claxton. You tell him to that a couple years ago, and he probably himself wouldn't even believe you. He continues to raise his stock, and it's not just that, because at this point, there are Nets fans who would love to keep him around the way he has been playing lately. And Another plus of this performance by Nick Claxton eats up 32 minutes at the center role. The center role has kind of been uneasy for the Nets the last 2 seasons, but he gives Day'Ron Sharpe an effective night off. Sharpe has been a very, very hard worker. I mean, don't get me wrong, Day'Ron Sharpe made his presence felt. He had a couple emphatic dunks in his 16 minutes on the court, but he gave him an effective night off because when Nick Claxton is playing that well, there is absolutely no need for Jordi Fernandez to try and retool things and head to his bench early. Danny Wolf also only needed to play 14 minutes, so Nick Claxton really, really carried the Nets in the paint last night. Came up big on the rebounding end as well. 4 rebounds, led the team, or actually was second to the team in that to Clowney, but then 9 assists. I mean, nobody else came within 3 of him, and that's Nolan Traore, your starting point guard. Other than that, the most was MPJ with 3. So, I mean, Nick Claxton with an uncharacteristic amount of assists and was one shy of that coveted double-double, just missed it and wasn't able to get there as well, but made his presence felt on the defensive end with 3 steals, also tied for the team lead there. All around a great, great night from Nick Claxton and the Carolina crew as a whole, as well as Clowney. But it's not just those guys stepping up. It is also the guys that you would not expect. How about 17 points from Terrence Mann in 19 minutes? This is a guy that hasn't put in 17 points since November 2nd of 2025. That is 4 months ago, over 4 months ago. And to me, Terrence Mann has always been this back of the rotation guy that really couldn't find his footing on this team. He was supposed to be a veteran, but he couldn't really figure out a role. And his time on the court, he looked like he was taking away opportunities when he shouldn't have been. But this is a textbook example of how to be a great veteran on a young team. He comes in, he plays some huge minutes down the stretch, hits 2 big threes to keep the Nets in it. Mentioned it at the top. They cut a 15-point lead all the way down to 2 with 7.5 to play. Man hit 2 big threes on that run there. And just a textbook example of how you want a team veteran to play. And one of his biggest scoring nights is a net. And that's not what I need to see. I don't need to see a huge night in the scorebooks from Terrence Mann. Obviously, it's going to be nice. But still, you love to see it. And his leadership was absolutely out there. Again, Jordi Fernandez is trying any and all possible combinations in games down the stretch now. Could Terrence Mann possibly be an addition to that? I'm not sure, but at this point, it just looks like Jordi puts the 5 out there that give him the best chance of losing down the stretch and the least amount of experience. So we'll have to see how he plays that. And then Ochai Agbaji really stood out to me again. Agbaji, a guy who came over from the Raptors, really wasn't getting much playing time. And I warn Nets fans, you gotta look out for this guy because he is ready to make a massive impact in the minutes he gets. 9 points really does not say enough about it. 3 of 4 from deep, I think, is really the number that you need to know in 17 minutes. Comes off the bench, is an immediate spark plug, is a plug-and-play guy. You get him with any rotation you could think of, and he's still going to give you a positive outcome. He comes in off the bench, and it is really just a light beam in terms of his positive outlook. Look, the plus minus isn't there, but he really did lead the Nets on that run that brought him back in it. He was in the game basically the entire heat of that late third quarter, early fourth quarter run that brought Brooklyn back within 2. As I mentioned, Terrence Mann also being a contributor on that run. So Agbaji, a guy not really going to show up in the stat sheet as well. Same thing, but he is really going to make an impact out there on the court. And then obviously Noah Clowney. We went over him, but seriously, not an every night scorer, not a guy you would expect to do this with regularity, but he really stepped up. And a couple guys big time stepping up who you wouldn't expect, but same thing happened for Dallas as well. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and just put this as a one-side thing. Hello, Marvin Bagley the third. Like, I mean, if you told me like I was retired, I wouldn't have been shocked. I remember back when he was on the Kings, he got drafted in 2017. Those were the Kenny Atkinson days at Barclays Center. I was at a game there. Marvin Bagley had a couple big shots for the Kings, but I think the Nets ended up winning by like 30 or something on MLK Day. That's one of the first Nets memories I have. But hello, Marvin Bagley with 22 points. How you doing, good old friend? Najee Marshall, I think, also put in 21 for them. Klay Thompson, a huge game from three. He was hitting absolutely everything. But I think the big thing is there, and that relates back to the Thompson threes. He had a couple second chance opportunities threes, and that is something that Brooklyn really, really has to clean up. His second chance opportunities. They were out rebounded 44 to 28, which is really unacceptable. Again, Nick Claxton, a monster night. The other centers, really didn't play much and didn't have that big of an effect. And they also got doubled up on the O boards 10 to 5 in favor of Dallas. So what does that do? Just gives them more second chance opportunities, which Dallas punished Brooklyn with. And this team's laziness really did show down the stretch and allowed Dallas to stretch out their lead even further. This team, I believe, can be good in the paint, but when there's not cohesiveness on the court, I'm not sure that's going to shine through. And I think last night was a perfect example of that. But again, Brooklyn is putting out rotations they know are unlikely to work down the stretch. It's pretty clear that this coaching staff does not want to win many more games this year. I think they made that mistake, in the Bridges season. But last year, they sort of made that mistake, sort of didn't. Got Igor at 8. That was 2 slots below where they were expected to. They were expected to be the 6th pick, and then obviously the lottery screwed them over a little bit. But look, I have zero complaints about Igor Gioman at 8. So what can I say? If you're going to make up for it in the draft, you have a free excuse, my friends, to do whatever you want, blunder whatever sort of lottery position one could think of in the regular season. But this team really does need to clean that up. Maybe you try and attack the rebounding aspect in free agency. Obviously, Day'Ron Sharpe was a great extension this offseason. And the other guy that got extended this offseason was Zaire Williams, a DNP coach's decision. That's coming off of missing back-to-back games for personal reasons. So I'm guessing that's just Jordy Fernandez policy of why Zaire didn't play, or else you would have seen some textbook, probably Zaire and Ochai Agbaji minutes, back in the same time. Because those guys have very similar rules on this team right now. Josh Minott and Ben Saraf were down in the G League, so that's why you didn't see any of them. Still waiting for Minott to get his first real run in the NBA. I'm excited to see what he did. Nets got him for practically free from the Celtics. I think it was $110,000 in cash considerations coming back in that trade to Boston. And believe me, Brooklyn has a lot of money to be dishing out on random players. So give mine a little bit of a run in the league. I have no problem with that. And then Saraf, hopefully his development continues and he can continue to try to limit the turnovers. One more thing is that this is really, I think, I mentioned this at the top a little bit. This is really full strength Nets for the rest of the season, right? You saw them lay down their sword earlier in the month to the Clippers, to the Pistons, in games they were losing by 60, albeit those were better teams, but those are 50-point better teams than the Brooklyn Nets. This team at full strength, I think this is what you can expect. This team is not bad enough. Like, remember when the Pistons were absolutely horrible and Cade Cunningham went into that presser and said, man, this team is not 2-26 bad. Same thing with this Nets team. This Nets team is not that bad to the point where they should be losing by 60 on a nightly occurrence. I don't care who the hell you're playing. Knicks, Pistons, freaking G League team, freaking All-Star team. I don't care. That should not happen. And I think that this Nets team, and this is sort of the effort that this team should be putting in regardless of the opponent. And I think they have the ability to now. They will be tested. Repeat. They will be tested. San Antonio tomorrow night and Boston on the road in Massachusetts to face the Celtics on Friday night. That is a very tough back-to-back. So the Nets have a lot on their hands. Victor Wembanyama coming to town. I really want to see how the Nets attack that earlier in the season. First week of the season, the Nets played the Spurs. It was a major Cam Thomas game. I think he went off for 40, but Brooklyn just couldn't control Victor Wembanyama. You also have Stephon Castle on that team as well. So some very exciting guys coming in, and two great coaches on either side of the ball. San Antonio and Boston. Joe Mazzulla, probably one of the better coaches in the NBA at this point, fresh off a ring 2 years ago. So both of these teams are very, very high caliber. I think that's really going to be the test for this Brooklyn Nets team, as I mentioned before. Are they going to be able to keep it competitive? I'm not 100% sure. Should they be able to? Hopefully, but that is a very, very tough back to back to ask of an inexperienced team. All right, Nets lose for one final time, 123-114 to the Dallas Mavericks. Appreciate you all tuning in. If you made it wire to wire, hit like and subscribe. That is the best way to support the growth of this channel. Not only do we see your appreciation for the hard work we put into this thing, but it also helps other people find our channel. It pushes it out on the YouTube algorithm so we can build a whole community, the best community of Brooklyn Nets fans out there. That is the best and totally completely free way to support the work we do right here on the Brooklyn Boys. So if you enjoyed it, please take a couple seconds out of your day, hit like and subscribe. And that is all she wrote, folks, from the best borough in the world. I'll be at the game tomorrow, so I'll be there, do the live reaction on Instagram and Twitter. So if you haven't done so yet, follow the Brooklyn Boys on Instagram. We continue to grow there. We're on the road to 500 followers, and I think we're right about there. We're on our way there. The growth there has been exponential, by the way. So I really do have to thank you guys. We're at 462, the Brooklyn Boys. I'll plug it right here one quick time so you all can check it out. But other than that, that's all I got. Ladies and gentlemen, have a great night. Stay safe as always. I'm Josh Woolever on behalf of the Brooklyn Boys Show, signing off, saying have a great night, stay safe, and as always, let's go Nets. Good night, folks. Tough back-to-back coming up.